It is Saturday, March 26, 2022. I woke up this morning and on the television set was this thing I was totally immersed in. It caught my attention like a cat with a laser on the floor, called Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel. Never heard of it, but it was on the set inside the living room. And in a postulate of apostle, in a Christian format, I am watching this thing. And it speaks of Putin, and it speaks of a different business realm and a different sport, the sport of war, or the sport of almost an Olympics type obstacle course with the integration of different field toys, for lack of a better word, than the sports in America have, that I have seen. I have never seen this international sport ever on mention in America. This is the flag in the America for which I'm in, since America has multi-flag operations at all times. In a diet menu and imperialistic way, if this is the schedule and the planner at my family within this context of conversation, considering that my back alley abortion prior to being Linda's daughter was not honored, and I was drawn into this disgusting whatever. If this is the 2022 planner, or any of the planners for the years that I was thrust into this solar system of planetary, I don't understand when the cookie crumbles on the squares. I mean, a grid, a square, whatever. Why, when I have hometown American sports heroes like Wally Zerbiak and like Tom Brady, because he's Northeast and he's a birthday, Zodiac, whatever, so Alexander informs me. I had no idea. Until Alexander said, "Don't you know you and you and I and Tom Brady have the same birthday, Mom?" And I'm like, "Oh, that makes a new understanding of Brady Bunch, doesn't it?" I was like, "All right." And so, but again, I had to seek him out because I didn't know what he looked like because I don't watch American anything, not purposely. And so I'm like, all right, so on that theoretical, I've got two sports. I don't know, what do you call them at the top? Champion? Maybe champion. So if they're somewhere, and that's what this is, it's a black and white, like, it is clear. I am clear gin. I'm not a mixology, like, whiskey sour. I'm none of those things for WSNY and DKNY. So here we are in, if the boxes are all white, mine at the moment are black and white because there's some things that are wrong. But in an imperialistic way and manner, because my back alley abortion was not approved prior to my thrust into this solar system and galactic problem, it is only fair in sportsmanship ways of thinking of things that if I have a player, Wally, somewhere, Wally Zerbiak to be exact, and then I have a player, Tom Brady, to be exact, why can they not, in my honor, since I'm only a woman in this situation and they are part of men's sports things, if the cookie crumbled wrong, why are they not just going and fixing my need? This is what I do not understand as a big brother of somewhere else. I was raised in a hamlet that pledged allegiance to this, somewhere in a whaling community on the Big Fish, of land mass. It's what it looks like from satellite. That's confirmable by whatever is in the real sports part of the family, which I don't know. But I was kept separate or isolated from the rest of the whatever in this America. But from what I see on their porthole to them acknowledging themselves, they don't even look like family, and they don't look like Mount Rushmore any longer. And I don't have access out when I walk out the front door. I don't have access to the utilities needed in order to find any of the members of Sports Championship that know how to clean a schedule to help one little lady. And there was also another mention. My name is Cattaruzza. So for Cat, if you have a fat house cat, and then you have a scrawny stray cat situation, the fat cat in the house does not care about the scrawny cats. I get it. And about the cat population. I mean, they should, but to a certain degree. I need an indoor-outdoor cat that might be with the fat cat, and they might only see the fat cats at veterinary clinic. Just saying. So, however that works, can find a veterinary clinic if in need, because an indoor-outdoor cat happened to see one of the indoor cats being held on the outside, it would be really gratefully appreciated. Now, I also see this morning, same time, same day, HBO put, same one that does Bill Maher, not the science guy, that's Bill Nye, but Bill Maher, I guess that ties into maritime for Meridian, but whatever, on my plat and plot map of star chart, while at a time it worked out all right, but then it did not. So this real sports I had never seen before, I'll put on, but Bill Maher also mentions something about Bork, not Borscht, but Bork, B-O-R-K, and I was listening. He had two guests and himself, at them try to speak human about these words, this druidic word, and this druidic paragraph. And without a codex cipher, purposeful point in speaking on such things, like a proverb at championship, the way that they interpreted it, I was just like, no wonder why the world broke out in like the most revolting evolution, but whatever. So that happened. I got the four-letter key up, B-O-R-K, for something I'd never heard of before. And then I was going, coat hanger. Because that's always, whenever they say back alley or abortion, then they say the word coat hanger. And I'm like, oh, yeah, no, that ties into something I saw yesterday on an EUA exception by FDA for a one-time whatever authorized emergency approval of a normally non-allowable in vitro test. And I'm like, and then it had a word that one American knows that I know, who has a big blue house in wherever I was with Alexander, but on the other side of town. He knows who he is, and I know who he is, should it come up in needing specificity, which I doubt. So that is what I'm in need of. There are two champion. I don't think I've met. Maybe I have met Tom Brady. I don't know. If I have, it's been under cover of the guise of perhaps a tall man with a long jacket. I don't know. Again, it gets confusing with optical read and then not knowing and then having to try to recall. Yeah, we'll decipher between the difference between recall at respectable and remember at respectable. Because there's this loosey-goosey habit of using the vernacular and the vocabulary all wrong in the home. But again, that's because they know nothing and they've been left on the out of indoor-outdoor cat without fat cat help, let's say, in the way that it's needed to take cookie crumbles and just clear a calendar. I mean, come on, how ridiculous is this? One woman can't get her marriage right. All right, now here we are.
And now, your host, Brian Gumble.
Good evening, and welcome to Real Sports, where our March edition, of course, includes nods to March Madness and the start of the baseball season. But we begin tonight with a major story upending our world. That's the ongoing crisis in Ukraine. The Russian invasion that began on February 24th has drawn understandable outrage throughout the Western world. But those who are shocked at how the Russians are flexing their military muscle really shouldn't be surprised. Vladimir Putin has been openly showcasing his firepower for years, even combining it with his frequent use of sports in order to drum up national fervor. Our David Scott observed that firsthand.
As mortar fire echoes across the sky, buildings burn, and combat continues in Ukraine, the international community has been left stunned by the Russian invasion. But perhaps they shouldn't have been, because for years, Russia's been preparing for war in plain sight, all under the guise of sport. This was the scene outside Moscow in 2018.
Now I know where all the white people went. I mean, I'm here. Where did all of them go? And now I don't even have the language to speak. I mean, it is just, talk about being left outside.
Thousands of cheering fans packed into a grandstand, gathered not to watch soccer or rugby, but a competition of a very different kind. It's called the International Army Games. But put more simply, it's an Olympics for war. For 2 weeks each summer, the Russian military invites foreign armies to compete in 30 events. Simulated battle, but with very real weapons. Army scouts race each other through a multi-terrain obstacle course.
With no weapons whatsoever. That is what Reagan in the North America where I am, he was kind enough. And then they gave us, I don't know if we had a certificate. I don't know if there was a medal involved, but they put in the auditorium the rope that went up. I mean, we were little kids and this was being on the out, but needing indoor-outdoor cat that could go to veterinary clinic, whatever. So, so we had a presidential interest that came to our school who measured us. They saw if we could do sit-ups and push-ups. I mean, we were very young, and we were normally held in a building for the day. This is on the island where now I'm in a fallout shelter. And that's where they got me out of a fallout shelter, brought me to the HAMLET, and allowed me in their building, which had these things with presidential interest, which was nice. And thoughtful. And that's where we lived in that bubble of nice things. With whatever. A set schedule that someone else obviously was in charge of at that time. But there was introduction to what the sports paraphernalia and propaganda looked like, meaning a basketball was orange and had a texture to it. A football, or I call it a roast beef ball, just to decipher between Brady's bunch of athletic cohorts or his employment, whatever, and then my separate need for a big brother. So it's just whatever at this point. Because it's definitely not a rugby, but whatever. And then they showed volleyball, they showed tennis. Some of the girls played something called a field hockey, but it was not a puck. It was a ball. It looked like a cane, actually, upside down. I didn't like the intonation of that one. Some of the boys played lacrosse. That was big. I don't think we had football. And so I wasn't there during high school years. I went there my whole life and then got switched to Oyster Bay for high school for the first 2 years. So I feel like now in hindsight or retrospect, I might have missed out on some important things. But whatever, here we are. Oh, but there was no close mountain for skiing. I was invited on a trip once or twice, and I enjoyed skiing, just did not have the money or transportation to keep that up, although I would have loved to have. Same with ice skating.
Race to fire missiles at would-be targets. Fighter jets and bombers try to hit bullseyes on the ground below. Snipers test their marksmanship, while Special Forces frogmen race the clock in an amphibious assault.
Oh, is that a frog in your throat? That is interesting where that one comes from. Being that I am in an apple that seems to be filled with poison in some other part of the world. I do, and I love taking part in these types of things, in the athletics part of it. I just have been waiting in a sloth state while other things seem to take priority and precedence, and I don't understand why.
There's even a contest between sailors to patch a sinking battleship before it's too late. Soldiers here compete not for ground, but for gold. But for the man who oversees this event, the goal is something far greater.
How should we understand this unusual sporting event, the International Army Games?
This is a really important part of Putin's attempt to, coin a phrase, make Russia great again.
Mark Galeotti works at a European think tank, an expert on Russia and its military. He told us that with the Army Games, Russia was using sport to prime its military for impending action, and to prime the Russian public for the same thing.
The Russians spend a lot of money on these games. This is a big, fancy spectacle. They do not do that because they're hoping in some small way to bring about a peaceful world.
By the way, I met one of your operatives, whoever sent him into my path, in adulthood. He went by the name of Caesar, although I don't recognize him as such. And he was fat, and he had nice suits, and he worked for a bank called Continental, and he had some army tie. I sat in his office the day that I was introduced to him, not knowing anything about why such a man would address me at all. He does not look like anything nationalistic to me. He's somebody else's nation. Why would he sit before me and speak down his nose? Subsequently, his small bank called Continental operated somewhere on Long Island without my consent or authority and without my knowledge. I just want to make sure that Zodiac and that Brady are aware of his presence. He has since moved to a different state here in Florida. And he seems to have lost weight. So that happened. The bank that he was working for did get absorbed or bought out by Bank of America at some point. Just so we're clear on what's transpired while I was here, unbeknownst to me of their significance.
You know, blowing up targets with tank fire is not the best way to bring about a peaceful world.
It's not.
No, it's much more about reminding the Russians that they should be proud of their country's military prowess. This is about marketing, this is about profile, this is about image.
Indeed, state television beams images of the games into tens of millions of Russian homes. A production worthy of any major sportscast. Anchors providing in-studio analysis. And sideline reporters dispatching from the field. They even televise Olympic-style opening and closing ceremonies, complete with musical acts and a healthy dose of Russian pride. There was plenty of flag-waving in person, too. And some fans were even inspired to go a bit further for the motherland, to actually enlist in the Russian military, which, yes, was using the event to recruit new soldiers. I guess you're not surprised to see an army recruitment station here.
In this area of Mount Rushmore, with this flag, as much as they have verbiage on the media that sounds very much like the enemy of my state, they are using, not to my knowledge, this degree, but they're using this wonderful idea for recruitment, but they're recruiting non-familial members and entertaining them, it feels, without my introduction to any of them. I mean, since I am the only one I know here, and they are filling up slots and building rogue armies, as far as I'm concerned, with rogue money-making factories. I don't know how the law on that is or allowed, which is why a Brady Bunch representative with some real sports league and a veterinary clinic that is family-friendly to my person would be incredibly beneficial and helpful. And I don't know how to request that, but if that's what this is, that would be wonderful. Because it is really frightening, the turnout of what is making landfall, what is able to hold itself together. At the end of this, there's a basketball reference about a man who had a father who was a 24, and he flipped the number to a 42, but he had a single, I don't know, he's got a whole sad saga story. But again, they have on one hand these television shows in North America that say that there's some civil ordinance where the Negroes have to go